So lately, investors have become increasingly concerned about the state of the U.S. economy. This follows some recent economic data that have been released, which suggests that the labor market is starting to cool, perhaps more quickly than had been previously thought. That has been coupled with some signs of concern in the manufacturing sector, and also anecdotal reports from companies that the lower-end consumer hasn't quite been spending as much as they had been, that maybe they've started to struggle a little bit with the impact of inflation over these past few years. So investors have been seeing some signs that the U.S. economy might be heading for a recession, although that being said, the totality of the data suggests that we're not really at the point where we need to panic just yet. The recent July jobs report showed that the unemployment rate ticked higher to 4.3%. This kind of set off concerns because it triggered an indicator called the Sahm rule, which was designed by an economist named Claudia Sahm to be sort of like an early indication that a recession might have already begun. Although in this case, Sahm herself has said that she doesn't believe that's the case this time around. Another recession indicator that has actually been flashing for a while is the Treasury yield curve. It had been inverted for a little over 2 years, and basically what that means is short-term interest rates, or bond yields in this case, were higher than long-term bond yields. That actually recently reversed. The uninversion of the yield curve is seen by a lot of economists as a sign that the recession initially forecast by the yield curve might now be closer to actually happening. There are definitely a few ways investors can prepare for a recession. One way is to increase your allocation to bonds, particularly ultra-safe bonds like government treasury bonds in this case. These bonds tend to outperform stocks during a recession. Typically, recession is not great for the equity market because it tends to have an impact on the amount of corporate profits that companies can bring home. So while stocks typically underperform, recession environments are usually really great for investing in bonds. Another way that investors can prepare for a recession is shifting the stocks that they own towards more defensive names like consumer staple companies like Coca-Cola, healthcare stocks, utilities, companies with really kind of boring, stable business models. These tend to outperform during a bear market or a recession. A couple of ways consumers can prepare for a recession. Typically during a recession, unemployment tends to increase. So if one is expected, you might want to increase the amount of cash savings that you have on hand just in case you are among the people affected by layoffs. Having a bit of a cash buffer is always smart, but especially during an economic downturn, you want to make sure you have enough money available to pay your living expenses while you wait for things like unemployment benefits to arrive. Also, just making sure your portfolio is set up to weather any short-term market turbulence that typically we see during recessions. You can do that by increasing your allocation to bonds or even cash. If you're a little bit more anxious about how things might play out, typically stocks tend to underperform in a recessionary environment, so just keep that in mind when you're setting up allocations in your portfolio.